Hello, everybody. We are just checking the technical things about this webinar. My name is Michele Manocchi. I'm your facilitator for today. I hope everybody is able to hear me. Probably if you are familiar with this platform and the webinar, you have the possibility to send us questions and comment in the question bar that you will see on your screen. I will appear somewhere in the screen in a small window, and then you will have access to the slides that I will comment during these 45 minutes together, and then we have space for questions and answer, if I will be able to answer. I will ask you to intervene and to let's say share your opinion also in a couple of moments during the presentation, because usually this is an in-person interactive training. Today we are using this specific channel to communicate. That is great, so we can reach a lot of people, but I want to try to be a little bit interactive also today. So a few words about myself and the program. My name again is Michele Manocchi. I came from Italy almost 6 years ago. I have a background in comparative social research. That is where my PhD comes from, earned in Italy. And I work with the Cross-Cultural Learner Center since January 2017, where I developed and provide this intercultural competency training. CCLC is a non-for-profit organization that provides services for newcomers and refugees, and they have three social enterprises: translation services, interpretation services, and intercultural competency training program. Today, the program that I'm going to illustrate and to tell about is a huge program based on research that we developed a few years ago with in collaboration with Western University. Of course, today you will see a part of the first module, the essentials of intercultural competency, that we customized as much as possible in order to reflect the title of today, that is the role of intercultural competency in the attraction and retention of immigrant talents. This is a huge topic. Yesterday I was in a conference in Wellington County, where all the conference was created exactly to talk with employers and help them in understanding how to attract newcomers, because as happens also around London and in several areas across Canada, there is a huge need of newcomers and new employees, and sometimes it's difficult to attract people that maybe prefer to stay in the big cities or prefer to stay where they have communities. So what can we do to support our economic system to grow in that direction? And today we want to tell you something about that too. So let me start with the first slides, just to say why we should talk about intercultural competency and why this could be a tool for you. Well, first of all, it's clear that Canada needs newcomers. Canada needs at least 350,000 immigrants to cover the workforce needs. And actually the numbers could be even bigger if you consider other needs that we could have. So it's a fact that newcomers will arrive, and will arrive in order to fit into the workforce. So the intercultural competency tools is a tools that, of course, newcomers are provided with a lot of different kind of training how to fit in the Canadian workplaces. They receive training about technical aspect, legal aspect, safety and security, and even cultural training, which are the expectations of the Canadian workplaces, as we will see together today. My goal is more helping the welcoming organizations and companies and society at large in understanding how they can do better in properly welcome these people with the goal to reach a real integration, instead of assimilation on one side, or be scared that you will see your values, your core values in danger because of the arrival of new people. Actually, the goal, the final goal, is the positive integration of all the elements involved in this process. So these are our contributions to that. The second aspect that I want to highlight before going deeper in the training is that, as you can see from these slides, we need to talk about what happens when we want to hire someone and we want to retain this kind of people. And we have to talk about systemic discrimination. We don't need to be afraid of talking about difficult topics. This is exactly the goal of our intent, the general intent of this program. And we need to consider that systemic discrimination is there. This is an example. Ryerson University and University of Toronto recently published this article in which they said, we sent out 13,000 fake resumes across Canada for over 3,000 job postings. And the resumes were the same qualifications, same description, same experiences. What was different? The name on the top of the resume. So they used English sounding name, they used Chinese, Indian, Pakistani sounding name, and they use other Asian sounding name, the Philippines, Korean, okay? And these are some of the results that they found. The Chinese, Indian, and Pakistani sounding name received 28% less call for the interview, okay? Same resume, but I don't understand your name. I don't understand if you are a man or a woman. I don't understand how to pronounce. I could be embarrassed in trying to pronounce your name. Asian sounding name, even less and less, as you see, large firms and small firms. So, of course, this talks about systemic discriminations, but I want to address this in a positive way. It means this doesn't mean directly that these people are intentionally discriminating people. Could be related with unconscious bias, could be related with a lack of knowledge. We need to address the topic without fears. Also, one of the things that we are going to discuss is that you believe when you hire someone, usually what we see in Canada and around the world is that you try to hire someone that is similar to you. Because sometimes you are scared that maybe if they are too different, they will not fit in, they will not understand properly, they could have different values, they could ask strange things to accommodate. Now, with the next slide, I want to show you actually the main expectations that through research we found out are more popular in Canadian workplaces. If you read that while I talk about this, you will see that, of course, you can say, well, these are all really well embraceable points. Arriving at work and returning from breaks on time. Of course, everybody is okay with that and actually expect for that. Speaking with the bosses like they speak with their co-workers, because we focus on the tasks and the goals instead of personal things and personal relationships. The point with this list of elements is actually that the values around the world are not so different. If you look at this, you can summarize this with the word work ethic. We have a specific work ethic in Canada that is summarized by these 7 points. Now, if we talk about work ethic, everybody around the world wants to solve problems, want to talk about what have to be done, want to be respectful, want to arrive on time, okay? But the point is not about the value. The point is about the interpretations of those values. These principles are good in general for almost every kind of workplace. But the point is, which are the interpretations of those values? Like, usually during my training, I joke about this. I am from Italy. And so when we talk about arriving at work on time, I say, of course, I like to arrive on time. What does it mean to arrive on time in Canada? When I ask this, to the participant to my workshop, they say, oh, well, 10 to 5 minutes earlier, before the starting point, because at noon we will start. Now in Italy we question a little bit more the time. We say noon and we know that we have 15 to 20 minutes of window of flexibility that we can use to arrive a little bit late, to chat about personal things, and then we move to the real job. Now I come to Canada, and if nobody explained to me what does it mean to arrive on time in this workplace nowadays, I could start to behave as I am used to do. And that way that I am used to are not fitting well with the request of the organization. So that could create problems that have to be addressed immediately, because I am absolutely willing to fit in and I am sufficiently intelligent to understand what you request, that is arriving in 10 to 5 minutes earlier. But if nobody tells to me, we will start to create assumptions. We will start to create, let's say, judgments that we don't communicate to one another or each other, and that will poison the environment. Okay, so the first point, values around the world are similar. What changed are the interpretation of those values. The second point, I can learn the values of other places. The third point is that in this training, we will not tell you how to be polite with Italian guys, how to welcome Chinese people, how to deal with people from West Africa. We don't do that, because that means to stereotype population around the world. I could tell you something about Italy, for sure. There are some common traits in our culture that makes almost all and every Italian very, very similar one another. Sure, for sure. But I cannot tell you, okay, do ABC every time you meet an Italian person, so you will be successful in interacting with them. That would be naive, would be really, really unprofessional. So what I will tell you is actually how to self-reflect on your own cultural background, lenses, biases, assumptions. Only through self-reflection we can really understand what disappointing us, what we like and why, and then we can understand how much we want to be flexible towards others, towards diversity. But let's move on. So, just to understand better when we talk about culture what we mean, I hope you know the double dipping rule related with the food. You cannot double dip. So I arrived to Canada, second week here, welcome to Canada, let's organize a party. And in a party, like in all Canadian party, there were beverages, food, and there were also chips and sauce. So I start to get my first chip, and I dipped one. Now the problem is that in Canada, the chips are big. So I tried to dip again in order to finish my chip with a little bit of sauce. That was delicious. Now, everybody was chatting lovely about me and everyone around me. And then when I tried to do that, everybody shut up and said, "What are you doing?" Now, my first reaction was, well, I am doing nothing. But if you ask, probably I am trying to finish my chip. No, you are double dipping. Double dipping is not allowed. And if you really need to double dip, at least flip the chip. Because in Canada, there is this kind of fear for germs. They are everywhere. We can be killed any moment. So we have to sanitize every time ourselves. In Italy, we have a different cultural lens. So when we see chips and sauce, we don't have that social, temporary, local rule kicking in and saying, be careful, you can just dip once every chip that you take. We don't have such a rule. Now, this is a social rule, a temporary rule. 15 years ago in Canada, there wasn't. I asked, and they told me that there wasn't. And it's a rule that tells us about, for example, politeness, hygiene, cleanliness. Now, politeness is a value, we could say. I don't know, I never heard of populations around the world that doesn't like politeness. The point is not to be polite. The point is how I show my politeness. Think about greeting process. In Canada, generally speaking, we shake hands. In Italy too, but in Italy we had a physical hug and usually a double kiss in the cheeks, okay, on the cheeks. That is a way to greet people, to show respect, to show that we care about them, and we do that even with people that we are not so close to them. Okay, it's very, very common to see this in a workplace among colleagues that meet maybe every day. They are not friends. They don't go. They don't hang out after work. They don't organize barbecuing in the weekends. But they could exchange that kind of greet, okay, with the hug and the kisses. Now that in Canada is not so well received. Again, without stereotyping, you have Canadians people that are very, very huggy people, and you have Italian person like me. I'm not so huggy. But here is the point. Even if I don't like completely to hug and kiss everybody, when I was back in Italy, I had to, because that was the double dipping rule. That was the social rule that was absolutely requested in order to show your, let's say, ability to fit with the societal requests. Here in Canada, you have to fit differently. So you see that when I want to greet someone now, I'm a little bit embarrassed because I cannot anymore hug in the Italian way, but I don't still master the Canadian way. So I am a little bit in the middle. And only some Canadian can help me in saying, look, Michele, maybe if you greet in this way is better than this other way, with options, with, of course, differences. You will always meet people that will like to greet in a different way. So we're talking about values. If you look at the slides, values are on the top, of course. We can discuss about values, but if you list which are your 5 main values, and we go around the world with that, your list, you will find a lot of people in agreement. You could say family, you could say integrity, honesty, and stuff like that. Well, you will find around the world a lot of people that will agree with that. But the second line, the interpretations of values, is what we want to work on with you today and with our training. And then you have the real individual behaviors, because I bet that someone in Canada sometimes today will double dip. And still, that is a real behavior that is in contradiction with a normal, with a general rule, okay? But sometimes we do things. So you can use these slides top down or bottom up. Top down, as we did, or bottom up. You see something that doesn't sound good, doesn't sound right, not something huge, something little at your workplace or when you serve some kind of clients or among colleagues. Well, you can give a chance to the fact that maybe they are following similar values than you, trying to finalize a report, trying to well assist a client, try to provide what is needed to the colleague to continue the production. But maybe they are interpreting differently their role, their way to communicate, their way to engage with the colleagues in terms of chit chat, in terms of use of the eyes during a conversation, how much they directly look one another in the eyes or avoid the looking directly in the eyes of others. All these kind of things can be real behaviors of interpretations that are related to similar values but are different in terms of interpretation. Now we can define culture together, and I'm going in a few minutes to ask you to do something for us. So you can go and start looking at the question bar in the software that you have in front of you, in the system that you have in front of you. So which is the definition of culture that we use? If you Google the definition of culture, you will find a lot of different definitions, very huge. Why? Because culture is something that is complex. Experts say that culture is something that cannot be taught and cannot be learned on books. Okay, it's something that you have to live in. Okay, so we selected 2 aspects from all those definitions that we really like to highlight right now. The first is that culture is a set of learned things, practices, beliefs, pattern. So it's a set of things that you learn from your family. And second point, immediately related, you learn and relearn continuously. You modify. Think about you cooking. You are not cooking the same way that your parents were. And if you have already kids that are teenagers or maybe even adults, they don't cook like you. Why? Well, technology has changed. And maybe now they have access to different kind of things that we don't have when we were kids. The same quality of food is different. The same variety of food is different. So we still cook in a sort of same way that we learn from our family, our community. We have traditional dishes that we carry on, but we changed a little bit something. So through this metaphor, I want to tell you that culture is not something that we should be scared about. Oh my goodness, I moved to a new country, so I will lose all my culture, I will lose all my roots, and I will be completely lost. That is the sad standpoint on immigration. The positive standpoint is that I will carry on, no matter what, I will carry on with me some of the core cultural values of my family, my tradition, and I will have the opportunity to embrace values that I will find in the new place, in the new community. That is the positive standpoint that we want to use. And in order to go deeper in this, now I will ask you to do something so I can drink a little bit of water. So you see the iceberg in front of you. This is not original at all. This is quite clear metaphor. There is something at the surface and something beneath that we have difficulties to see. Now, I want you, please, to use the question bar to just brainstorm, to just list the first things that come to your mind and are related with your cultural background. You don't need to be from some kind of exotic countries to have a cultural background. You have a cultural background because of the definition that we just used a few seconds ago. Think about your family, think about your community, think about what you celebrate, for example, what you eat, how you celebrate things. Or think about the deepest thing, like, for example, what happens when you have to celebrate the death of a beloved person, for example, which are the core elements that your parents taught you, or who took care of you, taught you when you were a kid, the core value, where they are from. So let's try to list a few of those. Just brainstorming. Confidentiality is there because I cannot see your name. Even if I can see, I will not share. And we will use those materials in a few seconds. I'm looking at the screen right now. Okay. So we have collaboration, we have avoid conflict, sports like hockey, always be early for appointments. That is hilarious. Yes, that's right, especially for hiring appointments on an interview. So you see, and you are continuing to list things. So let me, for example, start with avoiding conflict. Now, avoiding conflict for sure is not something that you can put at the surface of that iceberg. It's not something that you see, like me eating pasta or me dressing in a very colorful way because I'm celebrating something. And so since I dress up in this colorful way, and you can definitely tell that that is unusual in Canada, you can ask and say, "Oh, Michele, why you're so you are dressing in that way?" And probably I am happy to tell you something about that. So that is something that is at the surface. We have still other things here. Yeah, political correctness. We have elements that can be immediately visible. Those are elements at the surface. We subdivide actually, if I can go to the slides, we can actually subdivide, thank you, the slides, the iceberg in three areas. We have elements at the surface. There, we have elements that are related with things that we are proud of, that we want to talk about when they ask about our cultural heritage. So if you ask me about Italy, I will never start with let me say, corruption and mafia, because those are two things that unfortunately are really, really present in Italy, but they are not things that I'm proud of. So I would start talking about Rome, Venice, Michelangelo, Valentino, pasta, pizza, something that I am proud of and I know you can connect with. But be careful, because sometimes people say, okay, so at the surface there is no problem. No, actually, you can already offend someone when you touch superficial things. For example, if you see kids at school opening up a lunch pail with something that smells strange, unusual, you can have two reactions, like, oh my goodness, what is that? Close up immediately. I don't want to feel that strange thing, the strange taste and smell. That is a reaction that is not interculturally competent. Or you can use that occasion to say, oh, let's see, let's share, tell me more. Kids, come here, show me what you have in your lunch pail. Let's talk about this. Let's see the cultural influences of this. Let's organize a day with the parents. Let's organize a potluck. Let's organize stuff like that. This is a good way to use an event, a superficial event, because it's food and you can immediately see that is different, in a deep way. In the middle of the iceberg, we have things that you can easily talk about, but they have to be learned. For example, arriving on time. There is no issue about, oh, the double dipping rule is there. There is no issue at all in understanding that I cannot double dip anymore. Now I know, and I will not do that anymore. But you have to tell me, because it's something that I don't notice. At that party, I had not lenses to see that. Because of course people were not double dipping, but I didn't see that. I was just by myself, but with my family, and we double dipped. So someone told us, and then we registered that, and we learned that. So that are things that you can teach and learn about others. The deepest part of the iceberg is what all our training is about. The deepest part of the iceberg is difficult to reach. There is darkness there, and there is mutation there. So those are our core unconscious values. Those values that we take for granted. Those values that when we talk about them, we say, of course, is like that. One of our participants tells weather. Weather could be a value. Why? Because in Canada, if you don't check about weather, you can risk your life. So sometimes when you talk with Chinese people, they say, oh, in China we talk mostly about did you eat when we meet the first moment, because eating was a big issue, poverty was a big issue. So the first question, how are you? Did you eat? And for us in Canada is, how are you? Did you see the weather? So those are related to culture too. Now, when we go deeper, we use our automatic pilot. When you use your automatic pilot, you use your standardized knowledge, you use what all you already know, nothing new. And you just go like a train, you don't question yourself. It's like walking and you just don't notice the floor. But when there is a bump and you trap in that bump, you need an explanation. So our suggestion is that we have to go deeper to look at our own unique individual cultural iceberg and see what is made of in the deepest part, and try to understand our unconscious biases and how we can work on that in order to meet other people and collaborate with them. Okay, let's move on now. Thank you very much for participating. To understand how this works, we have a short video with you. I guess some of you already watched this. This is a real situation, is a BBC live interview to this guy that is an expert in political and geopolitical complicated stuff. He's having an interview about South Korea and North Korea repercussion, I guess a couple of years ago. Okay, let's watch together this video and then we will work on it.
Triumph of democracy. Scandals happen all the time. The question is, how do democracies respond to those scandals?
And what will it mean for the wider region? I think one of your children has just walked in. I mean, shifting sands in the region. Do you think relations with the North may change?
I would be surprised if they do. Pardon me. Pardon me. My apologies.
What's this going to mean for the region?
My apologies. South Korea's policy choices on North Korea have been severely limited in the last 6 months to a year because of North Korea's behavior. Most recently.
Okay, so Did you see it? Now, the situation is quite hilarious, okay? We have a real situation and something unexpected happened. Now, my question for you, please try to answer as fast as you can. Who is, and you can use the question bar again, who is the person coming into the room to grab the kids? Who is her? Any idea? Wife, nanny, wife, babysitter. Yeah, so usually these are the two things that happen, no? Or she's the wife, or she's the babysitter, one or the nanny. Once in a workshop, someone told, "Oh, she is the neighborhood watching TV and running into the apartment of the friends to save the situation." So actually, she is the wife. 1 week or 2 weeks after these little events, they broadcast a new interview with all the family. My point here is not that we have to know the truth. My point is that your brain, pushed a little bit by myself, but your brain gave you an immediate answer, really in a few milliseconds, okay? And probably the word was, of course, she's the nanny. Of course, she's the wife. Now, we don't have time to do that because a little bit complicated by this channel. But if I would ask you which are the traits that tells you, the elements that tells you that she's the nanny or the wife, you would start saying things like, for example, she looks like Asian. In Canada, the majority of housekeepers and nannies are from Philippines and Asian countries, so the unconscious biases immediately kick in and you have your answer. Or sometimes they say, oh, because of her behavior, she behaves like a person that could be fired, that is scared of the consequences of what happened, and so of course she's the nanny. Now, quite interestingly, the same judgment, the same behavior is used to say, of course she's the wife, because as wife I would do exactly the same to try to avoid to be let's say framed by the camera. So you have a fact that is the behavior that is read in two completely opposite way. So the nanny and the wife, because of the same behavior, that are your cultural lenses kicking in and filtering the information for you. And these are related with unconscious biases that I hope. Can I go to the slides? Thanks. I hope you had the time to have a look at the video that we suggested in the registration page. Now, unconscious biases, just to summarize, are always there. We cannot hope to have a neutral approach. We cannot say we need to have absolutely neutral look at this situation, okay, or avoid any judgment. We cannot prevent our brain to jump to the conclusion. As we did together saying she's the nanny or of course she's the wife, the brain continuously does similar things along the day. The brain jumps to the conclusion instead of us. So, and jumps to the conclusion, the brain uses what it has. So the cultural lenses, unconscious biases that tell us that she was younger or not, she looked Asian or not, the nanny or not. So the point is not anymore try to be neutral and try to be completely let's say without any kind of cultural lenses, but the point is exactly the opposite, to try to know more our own cultural lenses in order to intervene on those and decide what we want to do with them. This is the sum. So we have this lens, and this cultural lens is determined by time, socialization processes, life experiences. Okay, now I want to move quickly through the definition of intercultural competency and then give you a case that we can discuss briefly together. These are the three elements that define the intercultural competency definition. Okay, you need knowledge, you need to know, you need to study more, of course. You need also feelings, you need to be sensitive to cultural diversity. You need to interpret differences like opportunities instead of obstacles. But the knowledge that you need newcomers, the knowledge that you have tools to manage cultural differences, and the sensitivity that you want to do that and you are absolutely willing to do that are not sufficient to have the right mindset and become interculturally competent. You need the third aspect, that is the behavioral skills, the actions, because when you start to act differently, when you really start to try to apply something that is new to you, you will fail. You will feel uncomfortable. When you greet someone that doesn't shake hands, the first time is shocking because say, wait a moment, what's going on here? And you might think that they are disrespectful to you. That is not the case. It's just the case that they are using a different strategy to reach the same value. A different interpretation of the same value, that is greeting, politeness, and human contact. Okay, so we need to work on our skills. This is why the training lasts for a while, because only doing experiences through the knowledge and the feelings and the sensitivity about this topic, we can also work on our general mindset. And the final goal is wrote at the end of the slides. The goal is to determine the most appropriate practices and behaviors to work effectively in culturally complex environments. So the goal is not having the right solutions every time applicable, okay, the solution, no, but to determine, to study the situation that can change person by person and create the most appropriate tools to work effectively, not to become best friends, but to work effectively, to go through the day properly and positively. Okay, let's see this case study that I will read for you. You can read with me. This is a real situation that we found in our research, and we have a financial manager, Albert, working with Hamed. It's employees in his team. Okay, and Albert just stepped into the Hamed office and say, "There are a few problems with this report." Oh. Do you think I'm not good enough? No, you did okay. Some particular sections need some work though. Is my report good? Yes, in general it is okay. What I mean is that the section on the operation is not complete. We need to highlight all of our budgets, including operational, productions, and master budgets. Do you see what I mean? Yes. I have been very good at writing fiscal reports. My previous boss always gave me good performance evaluation for that reason. So I don't know if any one of you find themselves in this kind of situation, but the general question is what's going on here? Now, of course, you can say, well, there is a clear misunderstanding. You can also say, well, Ahmed, start taking it personally. Whereas Albert seems to be more focused on the job, on the product, that is the report that have to be finalized. Now, these kind of situations have to be faced as soon as possible, because now we are reading a case, but actually Albert and Hamed will be our colleagues. So tomorrow they will have another interactions and another the day after. So we need to help both of them to fix the situation. And in order to work on this, I suggest to use these slides. That is one of our main tool, is the sum things up cycle. Okay, what is the sum things up cycle? The first stage, look at the first stage in orange on the top of the slides. We have to understand what happened. Usually, when we are in a bad situation, in a difficult situation, that is not related with something related to knowledge. We know that people are, their kids are dying around the world so far because of wars, because of a lot of difficult things. We know that, but this doesn't affect, unfortunately, doesn't affect our day in terms of feelings. We are not caught by that knowledge. So this is the demonstration, a little bit sad demonstration, that we are caught by feelings, emotions, not by fact. Okay, so how to analyze that situation? The situation, we need to go back and say, okay, Albert and Ahmed, which is the something's up moment for them? When I provide these, probably think about, do Ahmed has a something's up moment? Do Ahmed is going through something that is, what's going on here? The answer should be yes, because for Ahmed, the point is that Albert comes into the room saying there are a few problems within this report, and not, hi Ahmed, how are you doing? Can we talk a little bit about, so we can criticize a little bit the Albert starting point, but put yourself in the shoes of Albert. Albert is the manager, and probably this is one of the several issues he's trying to fix today, because the report have to be done by tomorrow, and there are other things that Albert have to take care. So Albert was hoping in a little bit of collaboration from Ahmed. What we see here is that the two icebergs are not overlapping. The two cultural icebergs of Albert and Ahmed here are very, very distant. And when Albert is focusing on a practical thing with a specific goal, Ahmed is taking it personal, because Ahmed had a completely different communication style. The deepest part of the iceberg, what they take for granted, is completely different. Okay, now Albert has also a something's up moment when Ahmed say, oh, do you think I'm not good enough? And Albert say, no, you did okay. So that's the answer, the reaction, Ahmed's reaction is the something's up moment for Albert, right? You follow? So they have two emotional moments. Those moments are the beginning of this something's up cycle. You have the opportunity in those moments to go through the cycle, sometimes fast, sometimes slower, and then jump to the second stage. We said that we immediately jump to the conclusion and make judgments and assumptions about the things that we are living around us. That is exactly what happened from Albert and Ahmed. They had a something's up moment and they jumped to the conclusion. And we can start listening the conclusions that maybe or the judgment that they do one another, okay? Negative sometimes, or maybe just then you have, what we usually do as human beings is 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4. We have a situation, we judge the situation with our deepest part of the iceberg, we jump to the conclusion, we are in need of a solution right away. So we jump to the fourth stage and we want to act to fix immediately the solution. Now, our suggestion is to pause and to go to stage 3, that is making sense. That is a thing that is very easy for me to tell you, but very complicated to apply. This is why we have our supportive training and ongoing training that support your organizations in going deeper in the situations that you want to address. And we go through the fundamental of intercultural competency, and then the effective intercultural communication, and then we address systemic discrimination, racism, and the most difficult topics and conversations, because we need to understand what does it mean to go through stage 3. And basically what I say right now is that going to stage 3 means check on your iceberg. Try to make yourself open, let's say vulnerable to diversity, to other things that can happen around you. And in general, what is normal to you should not anymore be took for granted. What is normal to you is not anymore normal to everyone else around you, because of the iceberg. So what you take for granted that can be used to communicate properly, actually other people don't even understand what you're talking about. When you say, you know what I mean, we're on the same page here, right? All those kind of expressions suggest that you are relying on your deepest part of the iceberg, hoping that they overlapped. But actually, with people from around the world, those icebergs are not overlapping anymore, or we cannot anymore take for granted that they do. We need to check. And this is the main meaning of the third stage. We need to check on our own normal things, what we take for granted, and we need to check on what others take for granted. After that, we can move to the section 4, where we say, okay, of course, now we know more about ourselves, we know more about others, and then we can make informed decisions. We can take informed actions. Will you be successful the first time that you do something differently? No. No doubt about that. You will meet failures, you will meet embarrassment, you will laugh, hopefully, if everybody takes this for the right way. Like, for example, greeting process, you try to do something different than usual, and you will find yourself completely off of the situation. But those are all opportunities to show that you are working on yourself in order to integrate, not only adapt, not only assimilate, but integrate within the workplaces all the richness that you can have and you will have in the future. There will be, you will be out of your zone of confidence, but you will gain. You will gain experience, and you will be able to use all that diversity in a positive way. Okay, so when you go through this, you repeat this. Is an exercise that you start doing by yourself in a safe situation, and then you start to apply to small things. And actually, if you really want to go deeper, please call us and inquire for training or something that we can do together, because I'm trying to give you tools and strategies that you can apply, but be careful in doing that right away, okay? Because we just talked for a few minutes today. Now, I can go to the slides. Now, we conclude saying, if you go back to the 7 points that we start with, so the expectations in the Canadian workplaces, now you can start to see how difficult it could be to deal with them, how difficult it could be if we, as newcomers, are not helped in doing that. And I want to be clear about that. We, of course, we say that is a two-way process. As welcoming society, we have to do a lot to help immigrants, and immigrants have to do a lot to fit in this society, okay? But these two ways have to collaborate, and we have to take responsibility for what we have the power to do. And that two questions at the end, those two questions are actually one question at the end of the slide, should help you in understanding a little bit more that, because fitting in those 7 points could be painless, could be easy for people that have your iceberg, the iceberg that overlaps almost completely. But for those that have an iceberg that is completely different, which kind of difficulties, obstacles, or how much energy people have to put in, effort have to put in order to fit into these expectations. So I will leave you with this question that, of course, is a question that should stimulate a little bit of reflection at your places. I want to thank you for your attention. Thank you for your collaboration. I want to show you my contact information. I know that you will receive also the presentation and the slides, so no worries about that. If you want, just call me, send me an email, and we will talk more, or call the Cross Cultural Learner Center and they will direct to me. And now I guess I'm ready to open for questions, if you have any. Sorry for that, I'm just having a candy for my throat. Okay, so one question is about books. Good question. Unfortunately, I don't have a reading list ready for you. We can definitely work on this and provide it on online together with the link to the webinar. What I want to tell you is that I would be very careful in picking the right books, because unfortunately, what I see around is a lot of books that want just to sell copies, and so they push on topics that can help the sales and not the understanding of cultural differences and intercultural competency. But I will definitely, so my first suggestion is to read as much as possible, and not only books, but also articles, bloggers. So we will prepare with you a list that we will put in the employee website. Thank you for this question. It actually suggests something that we have to do. Do you consider London is a place that is open to hire immigrants? I don't see too much diversity in workplaces compared to cities like Winnipeg or Toronto. Good question. So London is a place where the immigration rate is around 21%. In Toronto, you have 52% of residents as newcomers. Of course, in big cities, or like Winnipeg is already also another good example. In some big cities, you have a lot of diversity already because of the immigration. London is still quite homogeneous in terms of cultural background. And I see your point here when you ask if London is open to hire immigrants. Well, on the one side, I would say, I would answer using my first slides. Doesn't matter if London is ready to hire newcomers. London has to be ready as soon as possible, because newcomers are arriving and they are ready for work, and they need London and the surrounding areas, they need employees and workers. So there is not just the way, okay, we don't hire anyone, we just hire Canadians, white Canadians for generations because we don't like diversity. They will shut down the business in a few years. If it's ready or not, well, I don't think so. This is also why we provide the training. Otherwise, wouldn't be necessary our training. But they are willing. There is a lot of momentum about talking about this topic. I'm called by small companies, big companies, institutions, local, surrounding, across Canada, you name it, health area, educational area, private sector, sales, service providers, settlement agencies. There are a lot of variety in my there's a lot of variety in my clientele. This means that there is a momentum about this topic and people want to understand more. What I see is that they will need time. One of the shifts that we try to work on is, well, we want intercultural competencies. Can you provide with 3 hours of a workshop so we can this is my interpretation, check the box and say the word that we are interculturally competent? And I refuse to provide it. I say, no, you can have a workshop for 3 hours, not training. If you want training, you have to commit for a longer time, because you need to really experience, expose yourself to the training content and the training activities in order to work really on the third part. Knowledge, of course, sensitivity, for sure, and the skills, the behavioral changes, in order to reframe your mindset. So that is one of the shifts that we are trying to push for a little bit. So a few introspective questions as guidelines would be nice, that can help us become self-aware about our own unconscious biases. Sure. We can also provide some of those, but in general, when you look at yourself, you have to ask, instead of why, use the question how. I'll give you an example. Instead of say why I prefer, I don't know, youth to elderly people. Sensitive topic here. It's not why, because when you ask yourself why, you immediately get defensive, even to yourself, and you want to justify yourself, saying, oh, well, because of this, because of that. Ask yourself, how comes? What happened in your life that pushed you, that helped you, that supported you in being who you are today? So look at your preferences, look at your core values, look at your language. When you surprise yourself using expressions like, for example, of course, she's the wife, she's the nanny, or we always did it this way, or yes, you know what I mean. Every time you look at the deepest part of the iceberg to try to engage someone in what you are telling, you are using your deepest part of the iceberg. And this is unconscious. So analyze those elements, those moments, with the question, how? How I arrived here? Which are the experiences in my life that pushed me towards this point? Now, this is not psychiatrist's approach. You don't need to go too deeper or to be too severe against yourself. But this kind of shift from why to how is very useful. What in one piece of advice you would offer to an immigrant person who has an extensive education abroad and comes from a culture where questioning your superiors is considered insubordination or rudeness? Would you tell them to inspire confidence with regard to asking questions, speaking up about new ideas, and taking initiative in the workplace outside of their designated job? This is a great question that implies power dynamics. We have a part of our training about that, a huge part, because of course, when you have a superior that is not trained, so is not interculturally competent, is not apparently not open or not aware that should be open to diversity, and they want to let's say manage you in the usual way as is normal for them, and for them is normal to have employees speaking up, collaborating and everything, that could be very, very difficult to deal with. I found myself in the same situation, not specifically with a manager, but in situation in which I would have to show up or show off. You have this expression in English, your competencies, your expertise, in order to be cool and to fit into the system and the organization, smiling and giving a piece of advice here and giving a good suggestion there. I will not suggest you to change completely in order to assimilate. Look at my words, to assimilate in the new place. I would suggest you to work as much as possible to integrate. So what you can do is to try to understand what you really can be flexible about, and you can say, okay, I'm okay in changing this aspect of my behavior. I'm okay in changing this aspect of my relationship with others. And which are the elements that you don't want to give up? Those core elements could be source of misunderstanding or difficulties with your superior. The other thing that I suggest you is to have a conversation with your superior. And when it's not possible, go to human resource people. Because human resource people should be trained in managing also this kind of situation, in which you are open to say, look, I see that there is a cultural difference here, and this is my style. I'm struggling in trying to fit into the Canadian style. I want to do that, but I need a little bit of help. So can you filter a little bit the definition, the situation, and try to help both the manager and myself to work along better together? It's difficult to do because the only thing that you can change when you want to change something is yourself, not others. You cannot wait for changes in others, okay? But you can talk about what's going on. So step out of the interaction that could be maybe a little bit strange or awkward, and try to tell about the interaction, like something, for example, like, so maybe I see this interaction a little bit awkward. Can we spend a little bit of time in telling about how we feel during this interaction, and maybe suggestion how we can do better. This is sometimes is a westernized approach. I get that if you are from a country in which you are not used to do these kind of things, also doing this is something that could be insubordination. I get that, but there are not other so many other ways. First way, work on yourself, try to understand what you can change easily and what you really cannot give up on. Second of all, try to get help to start a conversation, not about the topic, but about the structure, about the system, about this kind of conversation happened. And then try to massage the situation and maybe suggest a little bit of intercultural competency training for the management. Does employees sensitize employers, not just immigrants, as well towards intercultural differences? Now, I'm not talking on behalf of employees, but I can definitely say yes, because I know them. We work together, and they also have several activities for employers. As a matter of fact, we will have 2 webinars on this topic to work also a little bit about this topic and customize more, but they definitely do. And if you want to know more, just go to their website and you will find a lot of additional information. So we need to stop here, because unfortunately it's actually, sorry for that, it's a couple of minutes after 1. In Canada this is not allowed. I was using my Italian lens here, but actually we have to stop also because this is a webinar, have to be published, so have to stay in 1 hour. I want to thank you everybody for your commitment and your participation. Was great, even if a little bit strange to communicate only through internet, but was absolutely pleasant for me, and I hope you will be able to take something home. Please contact us any moment if you want to go deeper or if you like to have our support. Thank you everybody, have a good rest of the day and a good weekend, and hope to see you soon.